Back at the White House, San Diego County Supervisor Kristen Gaspar meets with President Trump to support his pitch for a new border wall.
When we get coastal flooding now, we're getting sewage polluted water coming over those berms into the streets.
A weekend storm system heading for San Diego, likely to make Imperial Beach's pollution problem even worse.
I think if you're passionate about your work, you want to go where you can make the most positive impact. And I think at this time, that's in the mayor's office.
And Assemblymember Todd Gloria tells KPBS why he's running for mayor of San Diego. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. San Diego County Supervisor Kristen Gaspar was back at the White House today. It's the second time she's taken part in a roundtable discussion on the border. While speaking to the president, she brought up the issue of local teenagers who are being recruited into cross-border smuggling and human trafficking.
There's an alarming trend in San Diego that our young teens in San Diego schools are being actively recruited by violent drug cartels. They're being pack mules for these drug cartels, smuggling heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl across the border. It's become such an alarming trend that they're being recruited over social media, they're being recruited over gaming consoles, they're being recruited in traditional safe spaces like our schools and our libraries and our parks. And so I challenge our congressional members to meet with these families, to meet with these victims, to look them in the eye and tell them that this is not a crisis.
The government shutdown will become the longest in history this weekend. Congress will return to work on Monday with no deal in sight. For now, President Trump says he will hold off on his statement regarding declaring a national emergency to use military money for a border wall.
A lot of things are working out well, but the southern border is something that should be easy. So what we're not looking to do right now is national emergency. What we want to do, we have the absolute right to do it. In many ways, it's the easy way out. But this is up to Congress, and it should be up to Congress, and they should do it.
Vice President Mike Pence visited Customs and Border Protection today, where workers are being required to work without pay. Congress has passed a bill that ensures that all federal employees will be paid retroactively once the shutdown ends. President Trump says he will sign it. Federal workers affected by the partial government shutdown missed their first paychecks this week. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman spoke with the wife of a local customs agent about the impact on her family.
KPBS had a chance to speak with the spouse of a U.S. customs agent who works at the Otay Mesa port of entry. She's afraid she could face retaliation for talking to us, so we've agreed to obscure her face and just use her first name, Eva. Eva says her family has some savings, but are already using credit cards to keep up with bills.
Paying for a condo here takes a huge chunk of our money. Paying for daycare here takes a huge chunk of our money. We're not really left with any extra disposable income anyways at any given month. So after that month, we're going to have to assess, do I close my business so I could stay home and watch my daughter? It is going to change our lives if this goes on for more than a month.
Eva says her husband loves his job and protecting this country, but just wishes he was being paid for his work. The family is worried that if the shutdown goes on for months, like President Trump has hinted at, that they could lose their home. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Some of the work done to prevent wildfires is on hold. Capitol Public Radio's Ezra David Romero reports on the shutdown and its effect on California's forest.
The shutdown that's furloughed thousands has stopped forest thinning and prescribed burns on federal land in California. Keegan Schaefer with the Tahoe Douglas Fire Protection District says in the past 19 days, there were at least 14 days the Forest Service could have burned.
Thousands of acres just in the Lake Tahoe Basin that are being neglected. Really, that's a shame.
The shutdown has prevented the Forest Service from hiring and preparing for future wildfires, says Humboldt County UC System Fire Advisor Lenia Quinn Davidson.
People came out of the worst fire season we've had in the history of California really excited to do more. This is just taking the wind out of their sails.
Wildfire prevention tactics continue on state and private land, but Quinn Davidson says many projects rely on federal dollars and are dependent on the shutdown ending. In Sacramento, I'm Ezra David Romero.
A local Iraq war veteran will remain in federal lockup. As KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh reports, the case touches on the VA and the treatment of people with PTSD.
Eric Benson has been in federal custody since he left a series of angry voicemails on his doctor's answering machine during the Thanksgiving weekend. The VA was already pressing charges against the vet for leaving other angry voicemails for VA providers. His wife, Elaine Benson, says her husband needs to get back into treatment.
And it's so hard for people to understand why he does what he do. He has PTSD and TBI, and I just want a proper treatment for him.
Magistrate Bernard Scommel ruled this week that Benson will remain in custody for now. Benson's attorney, Alex Fuqua, revealed the vet had been seeking treatment at the VA when he was arrested by U.S. Marshals on November 27.
He was seeking help, so I think in that respect, the VA would have accepted him because he was going through the admission process at that time. And then to, unfortunately be ripped away as he's getting admitted is horrible.
The VA has rated Benson 100% disabled for PTSD. Judge Scommel conceded his condition is responsible for most, if not all, of the Iraq war vet's actions. The judge said he would entertain a motion to have Benson released to inpatient treatment if the VA or another program offers to admit him. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
The Supreme Court announced today that Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is cancer-free. Ginsburg missed this week's court hearings for the first time since she joined the court in 1993. She's following cases from home and will miss another week. She's recovering from a recent surgery to remove growths on one of her lungs. Doctors say there's no sign of any remaining cancer. In recent days, two prominent local Democrats have announced their plans to run for mayor of San Diego. Last night, we heard from Councilmember Barbara Bree, and now we have a conversation with State Assemblymember Todd Gloria.
I've grown up in this community. I know where it's been, and I have a vision for where I think it needs to go. I think that we should no longer be content with being America's finest city. I think we should dare to be a great city. And a great city is one where families and professionals and young people, working people, can afford to live here. It's a city that does not have the fourth largest homeless population in the country. It's a city with a world-class public transportation system, and a city that builds on the climate action plan that I helped author when I served previously in the mayor's office, that we can actually implement that. So I'm interested in bringing bold, progressive ideas to City Hall, and I want to get to work soon. For me, this is not just a job, it's really a passion, right? And I think if you're passionate about your work, you want to go where you can make the most positive impact. And I think at this time, that's in the mayor's office. I've loved my time in Sacramento. It is an incredible time to help lead the state of California, particularly in the national context where we're not just resisting the Trump administration, but we're also trying to put forward a proactive vision for what a progressive government can do for its citizens. But here in San Diego, I think there's so much more that must be done. And whether it's my lived experience as a San Diegan and the son of a maid and a gardener, or my experiences in public service, I think I can bring that to City Hall and hopefully make more progress for the people of this city. So I think the time is right, and that's why we're moving forward with this campaign. I spend a lot of time talking to San Diegans one-on-one. I come home every single weekend for that exact purpose. And it is striking to me how the most common things shared with me are concerns around our housing crisis and housing affordability. And whether that's symptomatic issues like homelessness, the hepatitis A outbreak, or just the inability to ever see being able to afford a home to buy and build wealth on in this community, that is the biggest issue. And the mayor of San Diego can help do something about that by really prioritizing not just the construction of new homes, but homes that are priced for folks who need it. We don't build enough housing for homeless people, seniors on fixed incomes, and others who are struggling. We also don't build nearly enough homes for the working class in this community, for the middle class, for students graduating out of UCSD and SDSU whose educations we've helped subsidize, but who cannot see a future for themselves in this community. We have to change that, and I think the mayor can do that. I think we can also end chronic homelessness in this community. Other cities, other states have done that, so why not San Diego? We've made some halting steps in a particular direction to try and do that. I think by prioritizing it, by regionalizing the issue and working with local cities and the county, we can get this done using more data-driven decision-making and a focus on real solutions. And then lastly, when I served as mayor, I helped to author our city's climate action plan. I want to actually implement that plan. I feel that while progress has been made on it, the progress has not been urgent enough for the size and scope of the problem that we're facing. And the mayor is capable of doing that, and this mayor will do that.
We continue to analyze the effects of the lengthening government shutdown on San Diegans and look at new faces in Sacramento and county government, plus who's already running for mayor of San Diego and why. It's all on the KPBS Roundtable tonight at 8:30.
San Diego County is bracing for a series of storms that will likely drench the region. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says the storms are expected to worsen cross-border pollution.
Imperial Beach residents have already lost access to their beaches this week because raw sewage is fouling ocean waters. It's been more than a month since a large sewage pipe in Tijuana burst and Mexican sewage began polluting U.S. waters. Imperial Beach Mayor Serge Dedina expects the situation to get worse next week.
That combined with big surf and storms is problematic, not just because of the sewage pollution, because when we get coastal flooding now, we're getting sewage polluted water coming over those berms into the streets.
A handful of winter storms are poised to begin rolling through the region this weekend. The first hits tomorrow. The others lined up and expected to drench San Diego through next Friday. Now, National Weather Service forecaster James Brotherton says San Diego has already had more than 5 inches of rain, and the official rainy season doesn't end until April.
The rest of January looks to be above normal, and then for the rest of the wet season, it looks like a slightly above normal prediction for precipitation for Southern California. Not a strong correlation, but a slightly stronger probability of above normal precipitation.
This year's wet weather comes after one of the driest rainfall years in San Diego County. Just over 3 inches of rain fell last winter. The average rainfall, a bit over 10 inches. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
More than 300 beds in downtown shelters will be open during this weekend's rainy weather. KPBS's Deb Welsh says even more is being done to keep San Diego's homeless dry.
The National Weather Service is forecasting about 5 days of rainfall. Bob McElroy with the Alpha Project says his organization is trying to get to as many homeless people as possible.
Our outreach teams are out as we speak, and they'll be out all weekend. We're going to the riverbeds, the canyons and freeway overpasses to make sure everybody's got plastic. We are handing out blankets and jackets, but if stuff gets wet, that's useless. So lots of plastic, just trying to keep people dry.
In December, one downtown Alpha Project site flooded due to heavy rains. McElroy says preparations have been made in case bad weather becomes even worse. Deb Welsh, KPBS News.
We're continuing to watch more wet weather make its way in towards California here. This is the radar and satellite from the past several hours. We'll continue to watch clouds fill into San Diego and much of Southern California. This is all due to our big pattern change here. High pressure out to the northwest, and that's been funneling all that moisture in towards California. Tonight, once again, lots of clouds, and that heavy rain picks up late with a low of 55. We'll be cooling down to 47 in Oceanside, 46 in Borrego Springs, and 36 in Mount Laguna. Now, as we head into your Saturday, low pressure continues to track its way inland. Rain here into San Diego, Mount Laguna, and that is what we're going to show you in your Futurecast. Kicking off at 8 p.m. tonight, not a whole bunch of wet weather. Even around the 9 o'clock hour, still going to be dry. As when we really head past midnight, where we start to see those showers progress on in, out towards Oceanside, San Diego, getting that first taste there. And then as we head past that into the 5 a.m. hour, well, we get a heavy batch of moisture rolling through San Diego, some heavy downpours, and really anticipating in those lower levels a quarter to a half an inch of rain with this system for this weekend. We'll continue to see that moisture spread its way into Borrego Springs and Mount Laguna through the rest of the morning, and then clouds and moisture lingering behind that. We're topping off at 61 in Oceanside, 62 in Borrego Springs, and 41 for Mount Laguna on your Saturday. San Diego, a high of 63. This will continue this parade of storms into next week. Even some high elevation snow out towards the Sierras, as well as some very rough surf off the coast as we get another low pressure tracking in. So wet for tomorrow, cloudy conditions Sunday and Monday, topping off at 65 on Monday near the coast. Tuesday, Wednesday, another chance for wet conditions. We'll also see that pattern here inland with highs in the 60s through your extended forecast. Mountain areas in the 40s. You can see some spotty snow showers in the highest elevations. We'll get another chance of wet weather once again Tuesday and Wednesday, and also can see some wet conditions returning Tuesday and Wednesday for the deserts as well, with highs in the 60s. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your meteorologist, Daji Aswad. Back to you.
Billions invested into San Diego's startups, flying taxis, and computers embedded in shades. The Consumer Electronics Show wraps up in Las Vegas. I spoke to SDSU marketing lecturer Mira Kopik about that and more for the Friday Business Report. Mira, welcome.
Thank you.
So it's going to cost more to take your family to the happiest place on earth. Disneyland Resorts has announced that starting this week, prices are raised across the board by up to 25%, including parking. Now, this amusement park was already out of reach for many families. From a business perspective, why do this?
Well, they have to pay for the upgrades in some way, shape, or form. So the new Star Wars section of Disneyland that's going to open up this summer is costs hundreds of millions of dollars. The last few years, they've made huge park upgrades in California Adventure, with the Tower of Terror becoming the Guardians of the Galaxy, the Bug's Life becoming a Marvel section of the park. Disney has invested a lot to compete with Universal Studios with the whole Harry Potter world. So Disney knows that its brand is well regarded by consumers. Yes, there is not going to be a way to get to Disney for less than $100. But what's scary is that people really don't know that since 2017, since the end of 2017, Disney has actually increased total prices, including this increase, over 40%. And park attendance has not dropped. In fact, in Disney World in Florida, they went to variable pricing, which means that depending on how busy they expect the day, the prices go up or down based on that day. And they have not seen one drop in attendance. And that's a testament to the Disney brand strength.
So a family of four can expect to pay $500 before you even step foot in the park.
Including parking, yes.
Wow. So it's that time of year again. Today, in fact, is the last day of the Consumer Electronics Show. This, of course, is when 200,000 geeks take over the Las Vegas Convention Center to see the latest gadgets. And this year, 2019, car technology was front and center. In fact, let's take a look at the highlights.
The expectation of mobility has changed in a big way. People want the most convenient way to get from place to place, and certainly there isn't quite that aspirational idea of owning a car that there used to be. Right now, people just want the easiest way to get where they need to go, and for more and more people, it's using an app. And so the evolution of transportation is definitely being seen here at CES in Las Vegas.
What really wowed consumers?
Well, consumers, CES has become so large. And it used to be, kind of the boring stuff, TV, laptops, wearables. And now, whether you have flying cars or flying taxis, virtual reality, robotics, personal butlers, smart home technology. There's a big competition among firms. Google, with their Google Assistant, announced partnerships with KitchenAid, with Samsung, to kind of make an inroad against Amazon with Alexa. There have been a lot of interesting technology. One wearable technology is a company called Ember, that if you wear their device for about 3 minutes, it could change your body temperature up to 5 degrees, either hotter or colder. So if you're in an argument with everybody whether the room is too hot or too cold, you can just adjust your body temperature. One of the most interesting things that came out of CES this year wasn't even technology. It was kind of an interesting, it was food technology. It was the Impossible Burger 2.0. It looks, it smells, it tastes like a hamburger. It's 100% plant-based proteins. So there's something for everybody at CES, and it's an amazing show. And what it does is it allows companies to make their new product announcements. So pretty exciting stuff.
So an annual venture capital report out this week reported by the San Diego Union Tribune shows that it was an excellent year in 2018 for startups here in San Diego, raising $2.5 billion, more than the state average and more than the national average. Muriel, what does that tell us about the future landscape of San Diego's business community?
Well, it tells us that the future is bright. $2.5 billion is more than was raised in San Diego venture capital since the .com 1.0 at the end of 1999, beginning of 2000. It's more than double or almost double what was raised last year. So this is big news for San Diego. And San Diego really does not have a homegrown venture capital community. Venture capitalists come from the Bay Area or from the East Coast. So venture capitalists like San Diego a lot because San Diego CEOs, they say, are scrappy. Because there's not a lot of indigenous community here for venture capital, they're creative in how they build their business, and venture capitalists like that.
So more signs that the tech community here in San Diego continues to grow.
Grow and thrive.
Thank you so much, Muriel Kopik. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ebony.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the first missed paychecks for federal workers as the government shut down ties for the longest in U.S. history. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
An immersive theater production is now on stage in the East Village. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando has a closer look at Relics of the Hypnotist War.
Sometimes you receive an invitation and the mystery it presents is so enticing you can't resist.
Welcome to Relics of the Hypnotist War. I'd like you to take your time to go through the relics, take your time to go through all of the passports we have and to examine the lives that were lost during the great hypnotist wars.
Relics of the Hypnotist War invites you to be part of a historical narrative that its creator, Ryan Griffith, is deliberately vague about.
I don't give anybody really any sense of what to expect. I like them to enter into the mystery. So it's really the invitation to be and enter into a narrative in every physical, emotional, psychological sense. So it felt like the ultimate verisimilitude. It's not just the artifice of this thing, but that you're feeling maybe to some extent that this is real.
A reality created through ephemera that fill a small room to its breaking point with rusty memories and fading pages of text.
Hundreds of thousands of words and images on the wall, and a lot of people are engaging with the minutia of the images. And so people are finding meaning in the walls, juxtaposing the walls with the photographs, with the antiques. I love overstimulation. Like there's no end to the minutia and to the degree that people can really connect with this room.
In this cluttered room, dense with the smells of yellowing paper and burning wax, we meet the curator who tries to unravel the mysteries of the lives represented by all the artifacts he's collected.
No one can recall when the hypnotists arrived. They look no different than ourselves.
These hypnotists created a sleep epidemic that the curator tells us resulted in sleep cemeteries.
There will never again be anywhere as hopeless and as beautiful as the sleep cemeteries. Row upon row, casket upon casket, box upon box, reaching the ceilings until it looked like floating bodies. The bodies look like constellations of stars floating in the air.
The idea for Relics of the Hypnotist War came to Ryan Griffith when he was traveling in Russia and randomly met two women on the street.
They were talking to a man, and then they woke up and they were missing their purses. And they warned me that there were hypnotists on the streets of St. Petersburg. and that you should never look anyone in the eye.
Relics of the Hypnotist War asks what could happen if we have all our senses shut off and let our consciousness and conscience go to sleep.
And it just so happened that I was traveling around the world and through Turkey and through Hungary and Russia and all these sort of fascist dictators, felt, and then obviously coming back to the United States in 2016, feeling that the world was falling asleep in some way.
This turns what initially seems like a curio shop escape room into an allegory or political fable for those struggling to understand why so many around the world seem to have fallen morally asleep.
And it felt like a metaphor for the time in some way, although the narrative itself is not grounded in any time. In fact, there's a huge argument to be made that we're still in the midst of the hypnotist and we're still being put to sleep.
As we explore our surroundings, we're encouraged to find meaning in the objects we discover.
I mean, especially when you see that the handwriting or the particular idiosyncrasies of their appearance, I think that's probably just human nature to want to try to imagine and inhabit that life. Like a lot of those passports are essentially from World War II and people fleeing Nazi Germany.
But then what are the people in the hypnotist war fleeing from? What does it all mean?
To be honest, I don't know the narrative either. There's a number of possibilities, and every time we tell this story, it's slightly different. And we really rely on the audience to help us understand or to make meaning of the piece.
Perhaps the meaning is not to be found in unraveling the mystery, but rather in being alerted to the dangers of falling asleep and surrendering to the will of the hypnotist. Then the show ends with a ritual.
Typically, we go outside and we drink wine and then we debrief the show.
Turning it into a community narrative in an attempt to understand what's happened, or more importantly, what is happening now in the real world. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.